We now have 5 seasons of Daredevil across 2 different series, and I'm going to rank them all right now. Let's discuss. Hello and welcome back to the channel, or if you're new then welcome on in. My name is Jay, happy to have you here. As I said, in this video we're going to be ranking all 5 seasons of Daredevil. That includes the 3 in the original series and the 2 currently released series of the revival Daredevil Born Again. Before I get into the ranking, please remember this is just my opinion, it doesn't mean it's the right one. I would love to hear what yours are if you leave them in the comment section below. Also, please do go ahead and click that subscribe button. I've got lots more content coming out, including more Marvel rankings. With that aside, let's get into the ranking. Okay, so spoilers ahead for all seasons of Daredevil, and coming in at number 5 is Daredevil Born Again Season 1. To be clear, I did enjoy this season, though there were a couple of things that stopped it from reaching its full potential. Firstly, as everyone knows, the original Daredevil series on Netflix was cancelled alongside all the other Defenders shows, so that includes Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, The Punisher, Iron Fist, and Daredevil. They were all abruptly cancelled, and it was years before we'd get any future news on them. Finally, we were told that on Disney Plus, Daredevil would be the first and currently the only one to get a revival series. Now, that all sounded really promising, but the problem with that is that they had a team that were actively telling the writers not to bother looking at the original 3 series that premiered on Netflix. Yes, we had Charlie Cox back as Daredevil, and we had Vincent D'Onofrio back as Kingpin, but they existed in this sort of weird state where, although they were playing the same characters, it didn't look like they were taking place in the same universe. Even past that, past actors such as Deborah Ann Woll, who played Karen Page, or Eldon Henson as Foggy, were not invited back, and characters which were returning, such as Vanessa, were going to be played by a different actress. What on earth were they thinking? It sounded like a recipe for disaster, but thankfully the producers did realise what mistakes they were about to make and they overhauled the show. Unfortunately, it resulted in this weird creation where there was 2 iterations of the show that sort of got smooshed together, didn't pan out, I'm sure, the way they would have wanted it to. In its initial version that was created for Disney Plus, we had a range of new characters. They all stayed, especially because a lot of it had already been filmed, but they felt really one-note and hollow, lacking the depth that they would have had in the following season, Daredevil Born Again Season 2. Also, although Foggy and Karen are back, Foggy was obviously killed off very heartbreakingly in that first episode as the big inciting incident, but Karen was barely in the season. There's really no excuse for why she shouldn't be there, or at least not in the narrative sense within the universe. I know that out of the universe it's because so much had been written and filmed, but in universe, where are you at, Karen? Get back in here. Wilson Bethel, who plays Poindexter / Bullseye, was obviously back in the season. It was great to see him, but he has openly admitted, I think in a recent press interview actually, when he was doing press for season 2, that it was not the way the show should have returned, and sadly it came back with a bit of a limp.
It was not just that, oh shit, Daredevil's back. It was like, Daredevil's back, there's some.
There were of course still lots of things I liked about this season. I think the overall story of Wilson Fisk running for mayor worked really well. This guy's already been around for such a long time and a good number of seasons of Daredevil that I think it's good that we have the character in a fresh set of circumstances that doesn't make it so tiresome just to have him back as the repeated villain across Daredevil with the same motives. It was a new set of circumstances for him. Frank Castle was back as Punisher as well, which is great to see, and I also like the appearance of Miss Marvel's father to really show that Daredevil is now connected fully into the rest of the MCU, as it should be. At number 4 then, I have placed season 2 of the original series. There's actually quite a big gap between number 4 and number 5 on this list, and to be honest, all of the seasons that follow are a lot more close together. Interestingly, this season is another one of 2 halves, albeit in a slightly different way. We have 2 main storylines in this season, maybe even 3. Firstly, we do have the introduction of Frank Castle as Punisher, which eventually links to a little bit of what Kingpin's been up to this season. Also, we have Elektra, Stick is back, and we have the continuation of the overarching antagonist of The Hand. Sadly, this is the part of the season that didn't enthrall me as much as the Punisher stuff did, and I really do wish they'd just committed fully to the Frank Castle arc. I did find it surprising that Kingpin was barely in the season, but in hindsight it was probably the smart decision to keep him on the back burner. He was a major villain last season, and although he would be in the future series as well, you can't overuse him, you need to use him sparingly, and the way that they integrated into the season just in a sort of minor role but still showing that he's got a lot of power, I think was really brilliantly done. I also really appreciated with how this season was connected to the other Defenders shows that were currently airing on Netflix. I didn't actually watch any of the original series when it came out, and it was only years later when I was doing my full watch of the MCU, I decided to go into this previously untouched corner of the Netflix streaming shows. I watched it in chronological order, and I found it so cool that when Claire Temple leaves Hell's Kitchen, you then see her in the next episode chronologically in Luke Cage stepping into Harlem. That is how you make a cinematic universe. At the number 3 spot on this list, I have got Daredevil Season 1. Okay, I'm ready, come at me. I know for so many people, the original Daredevil Season 1 is at the top of their list, if not at number 2. Let me explain. As I said, I'd never watched Daredevil when it first came out. I was only seeing it for the first time years after its release. I was doing my full watch of the MCU, and when I was doing that, I decided to go into that previously untouched area of all the Netflix shows that were there, semi-connected to the rest of the MCU, but officially at the time, not really. For someone who had never seen those shows though, there was a total of 6 shows and 13 seasons that, to be honest, just felt like an overwhelming amount of homework that I would have to do just to get caught up in that area of the universe. Me and my friend would always joke around that eventually, yeah, we'll get to Daredevil, we'll watch all those shows, and we never did. Thing is, chronologically, it all starts with Daredevil, and that was the one that we had to start with. I must have watched that first episode 3 or 4 times before finally I committed to it, and I'll admit, when I did eventually watch the rest of season 1, it was objectively fantastic television. I thought it was a great season. The problem is, and it was definitely my own fault, my bad expectation that I'd created for myself about what the show was stopped me from fully appreciating how good the season actually was. There is so many things I like about the season. Obviously the hallway scene is a massive standout moment for any fan. I like all the characters and how they are introduced. In particular, Kingpin isn't even shown until the end of the 3rd episode, and along the way he sort of teases this mysterious figure in power, but not introducing your central antagonist is a bold and risky move that ultimately works for the show. The big lead up that we have to Matt finally taking on the Daredevil persona and putting on that suit also doesn't feel dragged out. It's 13 episodes and yet works perfectly as a setup season, and I don't say setup as a bad thing. All in all, yes, I really enjoyed the MCU's first big tonal shift away from what we're typically used to. In the number 2 spot then, I've got Daredevil Born Again Season 2, which I'm sure many will disagree is actually better than the original series first season, and you're more than welcome to. I love a courtroom sequence, and we got 2 really good ones this season. We obviously had the infamous trial of Karen Page, but also the one that we got of Swordsman, which was just so entertaining to watch. The action sequences in this season were also just as thrilling. Again, the finale is a highlight in that area, but so was the breakout sequence that we got in episode 3, again with Swordsman. He really got to shine in a way that we didn't get to see when we first met him in Hawkeye. I also appreciated how this season was not afraid to kill off its characters, and when it did it in a way where the deaths felt meaningful and impactful. We obviously lost both Vanessa and Daniel this season, and especially with Daniel, it really made me feel a reaction in contrast to how he was portrayed, as I mentioned earlier, in the first season, which was just kind of bland. I said this in my finale review, which you should definitely go watch, links in the description, but I was a little bit disappointed with how some of the characters are still not totally fleshed out. Sheila Rivera has been around for 2 seasons now. I'd like to see a bit more from her, and we got Matthew Lillard, Mr. Charles, this season, and I just feel we could have done a little bit more with him. Still, Jessica Jones came back this season, and that is enough to elevate this season above the previous one on this list for me. Come on, enough said. That means at number 1 we have got the original show's 3rd season. Come on, this is just perfection. Everything was firing on all cylinders here. The Fisk versus Matt storyline is probably the best it's ever been. The prison one-shot, which I suppose is this season's version of the hallway fight, is still probably my favourite action sequence in all 5 seasons that I've put on this list. He fights, he stops for a conversation, and then it picks him right back up again. It's magical. We obviously have the introduction of Bullseye as well in the season, who's such a complex character to watch. Also, Agent Nadeem, I really felt for him. He kept on trying to do the right thing. One of the most memorable bits for me was when he's trying to admit the truth or come clean to his supervisor, who immediately turns around and kills the other person in the room, revealing that she too has been compromised and threatened by Kingpin. The way that Wilson Fisk has infiltrated the police force was such a shocking development and really, really intriguing to watch. Of course, the final episode with the I Beat You speech was absolutely a highlight of the series and a great conclusion to the ongoing narrative as well. Now, it's been a while since I've seen the original 3 series. As I said, I kind of watched them all together. I binged them all when I was doing my MCU chronological watch, so a lot of it becomes a bit foggy, pun intended, I suppose, but when I was watching them all, this season in particular, there's a lot of things that have stuck in my mind, and that's really telling. It shows that even though I watched everything at once and you've got all these standout moments, it's some really good television with some great sequences. And that is it, that is my ranking. Please, again, go ahead, share your rankings down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and I will see you in the next video. That's all for now. Bye.